Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. We have a super fun video today because we're talking about my home state of Texas. In case you didn't know, every single state in the United States has like a national day for their state. So for Texas, it's the first Thursday of every February, which this year happens to be February 1st. So February 1st, 2024 is National Texas Day. And I am a proud Texan. I am born and raised, as you can see on my cup here. I love Texas. I have lived a little bit in other places. I went to graduate school in Boston, so I lived there for about a year and a half. And my first job after graduate school was actually in Illinois, so I lived there for several months before I came back home. But you know what? I'm very thankful because no matter where I go, the Lord always seems to lead me back home. And I love Texas. I love living in Texas. It's where I was born. It's where I was raised. It's where my family is. It's where my heart is. So, for National Texas Day, I thought it'd be really fun to do a recommendation video of books that are set in Texas. However, before we get into that, I thought it would be fun to give you a few fun facts about Texas. So, Texas is one of 4 states that was actually a republic before, or in other words, a country before it became a state. We were the Republic of Texas from 1836 to 1845. Most notably, one of the other states that was a country first was Hawaii, as you probably know. And then California and I believe Vermont. But yeah, we are one of only 4 and we're very proud of that fact. We are the only state to become a state by treaty instead of territorial annexation. And because of that, we put it in the treaty that our state flag can actually be flown at the same height as the American flag. So by federal law, we are the only state that can fly our state flag at the same height as the American flag. Although technically, you know, if you really get into it, it's not super set in stone because federal laws talk about like heights that you can fly your flag at, like the American flag and the Texas flag are technically supposed to be flown at 20 feet, whereas other states are supposed to be flown at 17 feet. But you know, that's technically federal law, but it's people fly flags at different heights. It's not really enforced. Yeah, so technically our flag is the only state flag that can fly at the same height as the United States flags, and which some people do that, some people still lower it in a sign of respect. It's kind of one of those things that it's technically a fun fact, it's a federal law, but it's not really enforced. So yeah. Texas, the word, our name, our state name, and country name when it was country, it comes from the, I'm going to butcher this, the Hasinai Indian language. It's their word Tejas, which means friends or allies, which we do love Southern hospitality here in Texas. Our state flower is bluebonnets. Our state mammal is the armadillo. And our state tree is the pecan tree. We're also known for the yellow rose of Texas. It's not our state flower, which bluebonnets are, but it's kind of like in the same line. It's what we call like our young girls. You know, you got your Georgia peaches or your Alabama belles. We have our yellow roses, which actually comes from a really terrible story because the yellow rose of Texas was a girl who basically prostituted herself out to the general of the Mexican army during the American Revolution, during the Texas Revolution to distract him while our Texas armies got an advantage. So it's actually a really, really messed up story, but we honor her and her sacrifice by calling her the Yellow Rose of Texas and calling our young women Yellow Roses. We're a very proud state, as some of you know, and we always like to say we're Texans first. You know, technically we're part of the South, but we always like to say we're Texans first and Southern seconds. And a lot of Texans also say we're Texans first and Americans second. And again, that comes from our history of being a republic first. We have some pretty big moments in history. We coined the phrase, "come and take it." I don't know if y'all say that in other parts of the country, but it's kind of a Southern thing, but more than that, it's kind of a Texas thing. Because before the Texas Revolution, when we were ruled by Mexico, they basically told our towns that we couldn't have any military cannons, and that we needed to turn them in. And one of the towns, I want to say it was Goliad, but that might not be right. They basically made a flag with a cannon on it and the words, "Come and take it," which became the cry of our Texas Revolution, because we're like, we're not giving up our cannons or our weapons without a fight. One of our most famous things in history is, of course, the Alamo, which is a really big symbol for our state. For those of you that don't know the Alamo's history, during the Texas Revolution, the Alamo was a mission where some of our Texas fighters were holed up and surrounded by the Mexican army. And actually, it was not a victory for us. They all died. They all sacrificed their lives for the revolution. But the phrase, "Remember the Alamo," came out of that, and it went around the state of Texas as a reminder for the men and women who had died in the Alamo. And that phrase, that rallying cry, "Remember the Alamo," went on to be what pushed our armies towards victory in the next battle, which was the Battle of San Jacinto, where we actually won our independence from Mexico. And in the years since, in the centuries since, it has become really our state's most known rallying cry and a symbol of our state, because it's a symbol of not backing down, even when we've been knocked down, like after the Battle of the Alamo, when everyone fighting there died. Even when we're knocked down, we still get back up and we fight. And so it's kind of the symbol for our state in that way. And let's see. The world's first rodeo came from Texas. It was in the town of Pecos in 1883, which I did not know that. I did not know we gave you rodeos, but that's fun. But yeah, so I thought I'd mention a few things that Texas has given you. The first suspension bridge in the United States was in the town of Waco, Texas. We gave you Dr. Pepper. We gave you Buc-ee's, which I think is more of a thing in the South than the North. We gave you handheld calculators from Texas Instruments. We gave you Dell computers. We gave you Fritos chips. We gave you Bluebell. And we gave you Six Flags amusement parks, which, if you didn't know, Six Flags amusement parks are named Six Flags because Texas is the only state that has had 6 countries' flags or republics' flags fly over it, and that's where that came from. We also gave you Whataburger, but that was a little controversial ever since they changed companies, because Whataburger was a Texas-based fast food restaurant that started moving into other parts of the country. But then in 2019, it was sold to a Chicago company, and so it's not Texas owned anymore. But also when it was sold, they not only changed several of their recipes, which they changed several of their recipes and it's not as good, but they also changed their value system. Whereas when it was Texas owned, they always said that they put customer service first, and they were one of the best fast food restaurants when it came to customer service. Like they loved getting your orders right and getting it out fast. So if they messed up your orders, a lot of times if you told them, "Hey, you messed up my order," they would throw in French fries for free, or sometimes a couple times I know people who got their entire orders comped for free because they messed it up, or if you were waiting for too long, if you were in the drive-thru for 20 minutes, they would give you your order free. And so they were really, really customer service first. And then after it was sold in 2019, that went way out the window. My brother was he knew one of the managers at his local Whataburger really, 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 really well. And she was like, "Yeah, the new corporate deals are like that. We can't do any of that. It's not about that at all anymore." So yeah. So Texans, we don't really like to claim Whataburger anymore, but we did give you Whataburger. So anyway, those were a few facts about my home state of Texas. It's a great place to visit. You should come on down or live. We love you. Come to us. Anyway, so now we're going to go over some books that are set in Texas for National Texas Day. Okay, so the first books that I have for you are the Land of the Lone Star series by Tracie Peterson and its sequel series, Lone Star Brides. So the Land of the Lone Star series has Chasing the Sun, Touching the Sky, and Taming the Wind. And I love this series. It's one of my favorite series from Tracie Peterson. All 3 of the books are 5 stars for me. They are historical fiction. The first book is set down near the coast. I don't think it's Galveston. It might be Galveston. I don't know. I don't think it's Galveston, but it's down near the coast somewhere. And then the next two books are set up in the northern, what is now the DFW area. And then she has it's a sequel series to it, which is The Lone Star Brides. I have the third book in the series here, which is A Matter of Heart. But there are two books before this, which is A Sensible Arrangement and I forget the name of the second one, but I'll put it on the screen. So I did not love this series as much as its predecessor. The books in the series, I only gave 4 stars each, so they're still good. They're just not my favorite, and I don't think I've ever really reread them. Like the Land of the Lone Star series, I've reread several times because I love that series. I don't think I've ever reread the Lone Star Bride series, and maybe I'd like it more if I reread them, but they're not my favorite. But they're still like 4 stars, so I would definitely recommend them. So next we have Karen Witemeyer, which all of Karen Witemeyer's books are set in Texas, and she has quite a few of them, so I'm not going to name them all here. But I will name 4 of my favorites. The first one being Short Straw Bride, which I'm actually kind of rereading right now because when I was doing research for this book, I was like, you know what, I kind of want to read it. I'm not fully rereading it, I'm just kind of skimming through it for my favorite parts. But yeah, Short Straw Bride, it's really good. Again, these are historical fiction. This one is about a girl who she overhears a plot to burn out these brothers' barn so that they can burn them out of their land. And the oldest brother, Travis, he saved her life when she was a kid, so she feels beholden to him. And so she goes to warn them, but she gets injured on their land and has to stay. She can't travel, so she has to stay on their land. And so her uncle comes and he's like, well, your reputation is ruined now, so one of them has to marry you. And so they basically draw straws to see which one of them is going to marry her. And yeah, that's where things hit off, so that's a good one. The next one is Full Steam Ahead, which is such a fun one because it takes place partly in Galveston and partly in another coastal town, but it's got some pirate legends going on in there, because if you know your Texas history, then you know that the pirate Jean Lafitte had some dealings in Galveston way back in the days of pirates. And so Jean Lafitte and some other pirates are kind of involved in this narrative a little bit, and it's super fun. Love it so much. The next one is No Other Will Do, which this one takes place in a women's colony. So the main character, Emma, she is the head of a women's colony, but it's being threatened. So she calls her childhood friend Mal, or Malachi, to come help protect them. And I love this book so much, mainly because of Malachi. He is fantastic. He's one of the best book boyfriends you'll ever see. Which is not a phrase I use too often. I don't usually call them book boyfriends, but I figured I'd use that phrase in this video because it's something you all understand. But yeah, it's more of a slow burn because they have this past friendship, but also she lives in a women's colony, so he doesn't really see a future there. So it's a bit of a slow burn. There's a lot of romantic tension going on. It's just a really good book. And then the fourth one I have is The Heart's Charge. This is actually the second in the Hanger's Horseman's series, and I would definitely recommend reading the series in order. But this is one of my all-time favorites. It probably is my favorite Karen Witemeyer book, actually. I love this book so much. It's got 2 male main characters and 2 female main characters, so there's actually 2 couples in this book. And the 2 men, they're part of the Hanger's Horsemen, and they're on a trip when they come across an orphanage that needs help. And one of the main girls, the orphanage is run by 2 women, one of which is an old flame for one of the guys. So you've got their second chance romance, but you've also got a new, fresh romance with the other couple. It's a lot of fun. I love this book so much. And there are so many cute kid characters going on. Yeah, lots of great things. So those are just 4 of my favorite Karen Witemeyer books, but honestly, I'd recommend any of them. She also has several novellas that are really fun, but I will say the novellas usually tie into her novels, so I wouldn't really call them standalones either. But yeah, she's got a lot of fun stuff. And her newest series is fairy tale retelling, so that's fun. Again, set in Texas. All of her books are set in Texas. So the next author I have is Lori Wick. She's kind of an older author, but she does have a series that she calls the Yellow Rose series, which, as I mentioned earlier in this video, is the yellow rose is one of our big symbols of Texas. So the Yellow Rose series starts with Every Little Thing About You, and then it goes on to A Texas Sky, and then it goes on to City Girl. And all three of these books follow, there are three brothers, and each book follows a brother. Their last name, I think, is Rawlings, so it's like the first book is Slater Rawlings, and then Dakota Rawlings, and then I forget the oldest brother. His book is City Girl. I forget his first name, though. I think it's Chase. Or Cash. It's Cash. Cash Rawlings. Yeah, took me a minute. But yeah, they're super, super fun. In Every Little Thing About You. So Slater and Dakota are both Texas Rangers. And then Cash owns a ranch. So in Every Little Thing About You, Slater is retiring from being a Texas Ranger, and he's traveling and looking for like a new home to settle in, and he comes across a town that has like a female deputy, and he's very intrigued, and so he sticks around. And then in A Texas Sky, Dakota is a Texas Ranger who is recovering from an injury, and his boss asks him to escort his niece to her family, but then she ends up getting kidnapped, and so he goes on a rescue mission for her. And then in City Girl, Cash he owns a ranch, and his housekeeper gets injured, and so he hires a girl who's new in town to kind of take care of her. And this girl, well, as the title suggests, she's from the city, and she's not really used to country life, so that's going on. So that's a really fun series, and I would definitely recommend it. So then our next author, so all of these have been historical fictions, and our next author actually does contemporary fiction. Her name is Janice Thompson. I know a lot of you have probably read her mystery series. I've never read one of her mystery series, but I know she has a lot of cozy mystery books that people really seem to enjoy. So she does write those. But she also writes contemporary romances that are really on the more fun and light side. There's not a lot of seriousness in her books. And honestly, I find her romances really cheesy, but in a fun way. Like sometimes you just need a really fun, cheesy romance. And when I need a fun, cheesy romance, I go to Janice Thompson. So she has several series set in different places, but she's like at least 4 series set in Texas, if not more. I've only read 2 of the series set in Texas, and the first one is Weddings by Bella, which every book in that series follows the main character, Bella Rossi, as she's a wedding planner, so she's planning different weddings, and she's developing her own relationship. I forget his name. DJ. His name is DJ. So Bella and DJ meet in the first book, and it follows you. There are actually 3 books at first. At first there were 3 books. They meet in the first book, they get married in the third book, and you're following their relationship throughout as she's planning people's weddings. But then, like, quite a few years later, Janet Thompson came out with, like, a 4th book that's kind of like their 10-year anniversary. They've got kids, but they're also going to renew their vows, and they're starting a new wedding venue in his hometown. So there's, like, it's kind of a bonus book. So that is her series. And it takes place in Galveston. Then the second series that's set in Texas that I've read by her is called Weddings by Design, which also takes place in Galveston. And Bella is also a character in these books. So each of these books has a different main character. It's got a wedding photographer is the main character in the first book, and then a baker who makes wedding cakes, and then a wedding dress designer, and then a girl who does wedding flowers. So it's all surrounding the wedding business, but it has a different character in each, and they all kind of meet through Bella because she hires them at different times. You know, with her being the wedding planner, she hires them for different weddings. And so she's kind of like, she's not the main character, but she kind of orchestrates things in these books. So she and her family are still involved in the book, so it's fun. So I'm not sure. I don't think I would call it a sequel series, but it ties into the universe. But yeah, these ones too are set in Galveston, which I find that really fun because I live only about 50 miles from Galveston myself. Although that's 50 miles as the crow flies. And if you know anything about Texas, we don't really measure in miles. We usually measure distance in how much time it takes to get there. So even though I live 50 miles from Galveston, I live more like an hour and a half to 2 hours from Galveston, because in between me and Galveston is the city of Houston. And it takes a long time to drive through the city of Houston. So, yes, I live close miles-wise and kind of far time-wise. But anyway. So that's really fun for me because Galveston is a place that I'm really, really familiar with. And like I said, she has other series set in Texas as well, but I haven't read them, so I'm not familiar with them. So yeah, those are all of my book recommendations set in Texas, and I'm sure that there are way more beyond that, not only from these authors, but from other authors as well. So if you have other recommendations, let me know in the comments. But these are some of my favorites. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy National Texas Day, y'all.